Perhaps we've got a moment or two to talk about 27031, the question that came up after my session.
Okay.
I know we haven't got a lot of time, but
no,
I think we
that's
want
okay.
to open that can of worms.
Yeah. Sorry to be, so hesitant about this. There's, it's in my entire experience of working with ISO for the last 5 or 6 years, I've never found any political issues. We seem to work very well harmoniously and collaboratively and collegiately on all the projects we work. But there's one standard, 27031, which actually doesn't belong to our technical committee. It actually belongs to the Information Security Group, and they're called SC27. They're responsible for 2731. 2731 is all about ICT readiness for business continuity. So about 2 years ago, when we got wind of them going to do a review, we asked whether we could participate in that project to add our contribution to really make a very solid link rather than the loose link that's there between IT, service continuity, DR, and business continuity. I got nominated as the representative of TC292, so I joined the group as a liaison, but as a liaison, you can't really influence, you can only add some conversational value. So I then became an author, a co-author on the standard. But I have to tell you, it was a huge challenge for me. I was in some ways the only, there were 2 other people, but I was effectively the only person that had come from the Business Continuity Technical Committee. And the challenge was the working group on 2731, coming from IT, coming from security, with very little practical experience in business continuity. They found it a challenge. They couldn't see the linkages that I believe that the whole technical committee 292 believed needed to be there to make a solid linkage between ICT readiness and business continuity. And simple things like even the terminology about readiness. What does readiness mean? I couldn't get clarity around that, because in our world, in the TC292 world, with all of our BC standards, we don't use the term readiness. It doesn't exist. There's no definition. And so to try and get a proper connection between what that standard says and what we do was a big challenge. The project has stalled quite a few times, and it has kicked off again. And so I'm looking forward to see what sort of progress the working group has on that. Separate to that, and it's traveling slowly, unfortunately. I would like to see it go faster. I would like to see it upgraded or reviewed. I would like to see modern thinking and reference material put into there, but it's a slow process. What we're doing in parallel to that, so our working group is we've put a new work item proposal into the ISO Secretariat to look at the creation of a new standard, a new technical specification along the lines of what I showed you before. And it's going to be along the lines of ICT, service continuity with a resilience flavor around that. So really want to step forward, right, with whatever current thought leadership is around ICT continuity, service continuity, ITDR, which I personally believe is a legacy term. Rolling, I know Juliet believes that too, rolling the construct of resilience in there as well. So it'll be a technical specification with 1 foot in the traditional business continuity space and 1 foot in the resilience space or the resilience camp. Very excited about that, but we haven't got a project team yet, and we're only writing the proposal for it.
Sounds exciting, that actually. We have got another question on the Q&A relating to critical infrastructure. I'll just read it out. There's current work being conducted in Australia for reform of the security of critical infrastructure legislation. They're looking for critical infrastructure sector co-creation of rules. Government are proposing ISO standards to address the vectors: people, physical security, supply chain and cyber. There doesn't seem to be a one fit for all to clearly answer the rule creation. Are you aware of the reforms?
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation happening at federal government level, which is all good conversation. And they're actually now starting to reach out to various technical experts within the ISO space. There's a number of committees going on. So at big picture principle, it's all good conversation. But you're right, there is no one size fits all. And I think it comes down to differences of opinions, which, you know, you're always going to find, and B, the application is different. You know, different government departments, different organizations have a different focus, they do different things. And so what I think is more appropriate is to understand what the menu of reference material is, and then decide which ones are the most applicable or appropriate to your enterprise. But yeah, good conversation so far, heading in the right direction. And I think as we start to adopt more international standards as part of federal government's policy, then I think it'll make it easier for organisations across Australia to step more deeply into standards. Juliette, you're on mute.
I wasn't actually saying anything very meaningful.
Okay.
So I responded to the question about organisational resilience, and maybe we want to talk about that a bit more, because my response was pretty much in agreement with you, Saul, that organisational resilience is a much wider discipline. And in my mind, it should incorporate emergency management, business continuity, disaster recovery, security, organisational culture, leadership style, and particularly the appropriate dissemination of accountabilities of management, and most importantly, alignment to corporate overall objectives.
And the governance space as well, including governance in that, I think it's really important too, isn't it?
And the one that you didn't mention, which for no reason that it's just in some ways a long list, is risk management.
That's what
I think resilience gives us a great opportunity to integrate risk and VC, but in a different way. I think historically we've always been challenged that, you know, people who are doing this through intuition, BC through intuition, will typically, you know, lean on the risk management framework. But as we know, philosophically, they're very different. But at a resilience level, I think there's a real need to bring those two things together, and there should be lots of conversation. And also, you know, along the lines of what Brian was talking about before, right? The linkages between security and business continuity. There's an absolute need to bring those two groups together as well, and have a more open, collegiate conversation about what the organisation needs to better protect itself, to improve its resilience over time, and to continue to be on that journey.
I think one of the things that we're seeing as well, and this came up in questions earlier, is the whole world is moving so much faster these days, and the pace of change has accelerated phenomenally, and that we do need to take more agile approaches in some ways. And it's quite a balance, isn't it, to build a firm basis on standards, but to still be agile enough to deal with the changes in organisations that are just constant.
Well, one of the interesting aspects about 22301 is it says you need to set a cycle. In government in Victoria, government has said 2 years. Most organisations will do a 12-month cycle, but the standard also says there are other triggers that you need to be mindful of that would cause you to do a review. So if you're an organisation going through incredible change, then that is a natural trigger for you to go back and do another touch point, maybe do a bit of a refresh of your BIA. And it doesn't have to be a fully blown BIA. It doesn't have to be an in-depth thing. You can run a mini BIA in a part of an organisation over a 20-minute conversation or a coffee, but it is important to do it.
Yeah, you don't have to start from scratch and start from the beginning again every time. You can update and refresh or focus on specific areas that are going through a period of change.
That's right. Does that kind of also answer the question that came up before, very early in today's session, about agile? Because it does. Yeah, I mean, there is no reason why BC cannot be applied or managed under an agile frame.
Absolutely.
So we've got a comment from Brian, which is quite supportive of what we've been saying. So he's saying that with resilience, it's the application of the principles, because no one size fits all. I think that's absolutely right. You've got to understand the context of the organisation.
And that's the very first, main section or clause in 22301.
That's right.
Do we have any last questions? I'm just so surprised we've just hit 12 o'clock now.
Yeah, we have. Time. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I know. Probably me and standards. Any last question? Any last comment from our panel today?
I was just going to add an extra bit of information for whoever GHR1 is on the question of having a friend in the IT space. Like, a piece of advice is like get involved in the IT projects as well. you'll build far better relationships with multiple people within IT teams, and you'll help them deliver the business outcomes and help them focus as well. So get involved in those IT projects.
And that's Glenn Redstall, by the way, who we know very well.
Oh, Glenn, you need to identify yourself, mate.
There you go, Glenn.
He has actually in the text.
Okay. All right, look, let's wrap up because I know we're now over time and people want to head off to lunch or meetings. The 4 key messages from today's half-day BCAW seminar: a stitch in time from Phil. The BIA may surprise you in identifying what your most critical activities are. Strategies and solutions do need deep thinking. We find that very typical in all the projects that we run. Sorry for paraphrasing, I know I'm over time. Great expectation from Juliet. Meeting of the minds between business and IT is essential. BC and ICT don't necessarily speak the same language. Incident management is a good example of that. We kind of need some sort of Rosetta Stone, or maybe good old-fashioned conversation, I think is Juliet's key message there. 2 birds, 1 tone from Brian. We need IT and BC people to work closer together. We need to build relationships. We need to shift the project tone from internal self-interest to external needs-based purpose. And that's a significant benefit to the organisation. And that way you can get your information security and BC initiatives rolling within the organisation. My session about standards, you should care about standards. Don't reinvent the wheel, leverage off global thinking. It's all there for you. Most of you as organisations have access to the standards already through your libraries. Don't shy away from it. Don't forget to head to the bci.org website for BCAW support material. In the next day or so, we're going to have our sessions of today up on our website. You might want to direct your colleagues who couldn't make it today to take a look. Plus, you'll see all the videos of all of our previous webinars over the last year or so, including our live crisis management simulation that we ran during Easter. Thank you to the crew at Terra Firma for pulling this webinar together, including Nicolette, Christine and Alicia, the guys at IT. We've got to cut the video now, so thanks very much. And finally, thanks to all of you for joining us today and those who have asked questions. We hope that you can take away some great ideas and improve your business continuity and resilience environment. We're looking forward to seeing you again at our next Foresight Beats Hindsight webinar. So keep an eye out for our event information. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of BCAW. Bye for now.